All right, we're back. So let's talk about a couple of things today. Real quickly, and again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because there are tons of resources on YouTube. But real quickly, paper. So here's one of my sketch pads. Paper has different textures, referred to as tooth. This is really, really smooth. This is great for when I do my cartoons and stuff like that, because the ink doesn't bleed as much, and I'm going to talk about inking stuff. Um, and it's a very nice clean line. This has a little more, you can't see, you won't be able to see it on here, but this has a little more texture to it. I'll show you the difference just by doing some shading here. Actually, for fun, we'll do an actual drawing of something. So you know how I love shading. So here let's just do a circle. Maybe we'll turn it into a piece of fruit later. And for today, I'm going to remember light source. That's wherever the light is coming from. Now remember, usually light is coming from all over the place. I have many different shadows appearing here because I have light from the window, light from my lamp, but we're going to pretend it's coming from one direction. So let's shade it here. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I want to get to some other stuff, but this is just showing you about the different textures of paper. Okay, so there's a little bit of my shading on there, and I'll hold these up so you can see them. Let's do the same thing on this paper and shade it a little darker away from the light source. So let's take a look and see if you can see the difference here as opposed to this. There's a little more texture on this. This paper has a little more tooth. Now, if you get into something like watercolor paper, much more texture to it. Okay, so it depends on what you want to do. So that's real quick talk about paper. There's all different kinds, but I tell you what, if you are, especially if you live in Massachusetts or Rhode Island, if you want to get great drawing pads, you get something like this. They're really inexpensive at Ocean State Job Lot. You can always go to places like Michael's and Hobby Lobby and all those kind of places and get a Strathmore pad, but you don't have to spend a lot of money to get some nice paper, and especially if you're just kind of beginning. So let's talk about a drawing. Now, I'm going to talk about perspective, which we already talked a little bit about, and using a ruler. Okay. Now, when I showed you the drawing, if you haven't seen it, check it out. I did a drawing of my hand, and I showed how to trace around it and not get this really crazy looking drawing. So today we're going to talk about perspective, how to create it, and how to use a ruler if you want to use a ruler. Okay, so let's begin. We're going to use the same piece of paper here. I'm going to put what we call a vanishing point, just a dot in the center of my paper. Okay, now around here we'll do one square, and then we'll do another square here. And of course, you could use your ruler for this, but I got to show you some. I mean, it seems like kind of a basic thing with the ruler, but especially kids have a tendency to get a little confused, and rightly so. And I'll show you what I mean. So we're just doing some squares around here, random sizes. This is just to show us perspective. And again, one of my other videos, I showed how to create a cube out of a square. Square is two-dimensional, cube is three-dimensional. But today we're going to talk about perspective. Here's a vanishing point. That means that things that go away from us, they get smaller as they go away. Now, here's the ruler. Here's what I see kids doing sometimes. Number one, what we're going to do with this is we're going to put our ruler on that point, and then we're going to go to the corners of this. I'll demonstrate, but I want to show you something that kids do sometimes. So they'll put the thing on here, and they're drawing on the back side of the ruler. Now everything's in the way. Your hands are in the way. Everything's in the way. You want to have the ruler where you're looking at the top side so you can see it. You want to hold it really nice and firm. And then you want to hold your pencil pretty much straight up and down, because a lot of times kids will do this and then it goes underneath and then you got that, okay? Or the line comes out all squirrely. So here's what not to do. What not to do, hold it down here and then have your pencil like this, and this is what you end up with. You know, you're going along like this, and I see this all the time, okay? So we don't want that. So that's what not to do. What we do want to do is, and remember, these are going to be nice and light lines. These are what we refer to as guidelines. So I'm lining it up with this point here, and again, I'll hold this up so you can see, and this point here, okay? So we want to have a nice line like that. We want to do it lightly. I'm going to do it a little darker just so that you can see it, but you want these lines to be really light because they may be erased later, okay? So now I'm staying on this point, and I'm going to the edge of my square. Again, I'm just using a number 2 pencil. All right, so here's what we end up with. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to create, these will all be kind of different. We're all going to use the same vanishing point. Let's do a couple more. So again, I'm going to hold this so I can see what's going on. I'm going to do in the top. I'm holding nice and firm here. Okay, hold it down nice and firm, lightly. Go right to my little square, my little corner, lightly. So we're going to talk about perspective and shading. Here we go. This is what we got so far. If you have a right brain like mine, you're already starting to see some stuff. If you don't, not a big deal. Let's finish these off. We'll do them all. Okay, so each one we're going to, and if you put them, I should have tried to do this actually. If you put them in a certain place, you may not even be able to go to one of the corners. Let me actually change this one so I can demonstrate, because a lot of times if you're putting them here and kind of random, it may end up like this. So let me put one right about here to show you what will happen, because I want you to see all facets of this. Okay, and like I say, you can use your ruler to draw these nice and straight if you want to. All right, so here we go. I'm on the vanishing point, my line here, and watch what happens. Look at this line right here, barely see it. If I was up a little bit more, it wouldn't even go to that point. It would go right to here. We'll see what happens. Watch this. I'm going to go to this next one. This is really cool. I love this. All right, there. And our last but not least line, right to there. So this is what we have. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create some cubes out of these. Now remember, parallel. Parallel means two lines that never intersect, okay? No matter how long you draw them, it will never come together. So we want a parallel line parallel to this, parallel to that, and it's going to be anywhere in here, and I'll show you what I mean by that. If I put it way down here, now I'm eyeballing this to see it should be about the same distance from here to here as here, okay? And we draw a line. Between these two, they're called orthogonal lines, which I didn't even learn until I was hanging out with a 5th grade art teacher. All right, we're going to do another one parallel to this, and it's going to touch the point of this. So this is our starting point right here. Parallel to this line, okay? Right there. Look what we have. So we've just created this cube. I'm going to darken this line in. I'll use my ruler. Make it nice and dark, because this is our subject. Hope you can see what I'm doing here. Look at that, okay? Nice and dark. Now, let's have some fun and do some shading on it. Again, if our light source is here, our shading would be on this side. This would be shaded in pretty much evenly because it's all away from the light. And look at, I'm not even staying in the lines. Holy cow. What am I going to do about that? Well, okay, so that's what I ended up with. Neaten it up. Love my number 2 pencil. Bam. Just like that. So there's our cube. Now, if you want to really have some fun, what if this is like hollow? How do we make that happen? Well, check it out. We're going to use our vanishing point, okay? And we're going to go to this corner right here. Lightly, because they're guidelines. Whenever we're doing guidelines, we go nice and light. We're only going to go as far as here, right to there. Look what we have. Now, it looks kind of cool like that, but it doesn't read very well. It doesn't tell us that this is open inside. That could be a line on top or something. Here's our light source right here. So I'm going to shade in. This would be this facet, this side inside. Again, look at, I'm being messy, going over the lines. There's that. And now, bingo, clean it up. Now, and then, oh yeah, we can do this. Smooth that out. Again, if I want to clean that up. But now it looks kind of like, well, like it's very thin. What if I want to make this like a box or something thick, add some thickness to it, some real dimension? So I could use my ruler. I'm going to freehand it mostly, but I'll use my ruler on here. I'm going to go in a little bit from the top. I'm going to go parallel. And again, if you go lightly with your lines, you don't have to worry about erasing too much, but watch what I'm doing. Look at this. This is wicked cool. And because of the way I draw, sometimes I have to turn the paper. It's okay. It's fine. Are my lines perfect? No, they are not, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. All right, so watch what happens. This is wicked cool. All right, so now I have this. Now, watch what happens when I erase the shading in here and that line. And you know, you may have to go back and touch up a couple things. You may have to go back and add a line or take a line out. See, I've got one right there, taking it out, getting rid of it. Let's see what happens. There. Cool. Now, what about this guy here? We're having some issues with him because of the way that we drew him in. So I'm going to let's pick where we want to, how deep we want this to be. I'm going to go right to about there. Okay. See what I did? So I put a line there. Now, again, I have to turn my paper sometimes. And I'm going to go parallel to this line. I'm going to hold this up because you can't see it from where you are. I'm going only to that line right there. And this line here, we want one parallel to that, but it's going to be way over here, and we're just barely going to see it. So I line this up parallel to that, and then I just move it up a little bit. And it is going to be something like this. Okay, there it is. And then we're going to darken these lines in. I'm going to use my ruler. So this is how you would see it at this angle. And you may have to adjust a little bit, but we're good. I'm darkening these lines just to pull my object out. Okay. Now, if I want to change the light source, I can do that. Not if this is all one drawing, because you want the light source to be, pretty much consistent depending on what you're doing. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to get rid of those orthogonal lines, guidelines. Clean this up here. You do not need one of these. But I find it comes in handy because I get, messy dragging the stuff around. All right, so let's get rid of these. We don't need them anymore. Because even if we're going to do the inside, we're done with those lines because we got that guy. All right, so this guy is a little bit different. Okay, so we've got this really cool looking box. This can be a very confusing concept for kids, but you remember, or adults too, I shouldn't say just kids. Remember, when I'm creating these other parts, and I can make this as thin, I'll make a really thin one. I would have my ruler and go parallel to that line, and then parallel to this line. And then darken them in. So there we have, that looks more like it would be just a cube. Okay, and then the other extreme, because this is, you want to go extreme with this guy. Okay, so there's parallel. And go way down here. Go like that. Parallel. Again, I'm eyeballing it. You could measure. All right, so that's what this guy would look like if he was really accentuated. So this could be, why would you use something like this? Well, if you're drawing a city and you're doing superheroes and you're drawing a city and you're looking at the buildings from the sky, you would see something like this. All right, again, get rid of these. Add your shading wherever you want. But now let's take a look at this guy. A couple of things, watch. If he's on a solid surface, we can have the shadow coming out like this. And it would just extend out. This one, what if I did this? This could be floating in the air. It could be the shadow of that. Like I say, if you're sitting on something, then It would come directly from the object. So there is our foray into using a ruler, doing some perspective, some 3D stuff, and just kind of having fun with designs. All right. So next time we get together, we'll talk about, oh, I don't know, probably some other more perspective, but putting it into an actual completed drawing. So I like to do like a looking down a city street kind of thing. And we have all these buildings and stuff, and I'll do a demo on that. All right. See you next time.